Hey, welcome everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here in Central Park. No, I'm sorry, I'm in Rome. And I wanted to kind of give you the next couple days a little overview of the magnificent Vatican Gardens. I don't think most people get to see the Vatican Gardens. They're very beautiful, and they can teach us a lot about the Pope and the history of the Vatican and even St. Peter. If you think about it for a second, folks, how important gardens are in the Bible. I mean, it all started in the Garden of Eden, right? You think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane as the work of our redemption began. You think of the burial of Jesus in a garden. Gardens are very important. Very often the people of Israel and the church are compared to a garden where the vineyard of the Lord blossoms. So we shouldn't be surprised that here at the heart of the church, right behind St. Peter's Basilica, would be the Vatican Gardens, all right? Now, in the next couple of days, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the place. Now, just know that when you talk about Vatican City State, most of Vatican City State would be the gardens, about 58 acres. And we're going to do a little walkthrough, so I hope you stick with me for the next couple of days, as I'll have the honor of having a walking tour of the Vatican Gardens here in Rome. Stay tuned. Hi again, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here in the Vatican Gardens. Thanks for joining me. Actually, you can, just a little background on what the Vatican means. You can see how this is a hill, all right? And this is a hill across the river Tiber in Rome, and it slopes down toward the river. It's not one of the 7 hills of Rome, but the Vatican was a hill outside of Rome where they had a stadium. They kind of had a sports arena at the slope, and it was there the early Christians were martyred. Primary among them would be our beloved St. Peter, all right? Martyred there, and then brought a little bit farther away to what they called an necropolis, where the people martyred were buried. And that's why from the beginning the Vatican had a sacred connotation for believers, because it was the burial spot of St. Peter. Now the gardens surround that whole area, all the way out to St. Peter's Square, if you can picture it. In the middle of which, of course, is St. Peter's Basilica over the burial place of St. Peter. So I'm going to keep talking about the Vatican Gardens. I hope I'm not boring you silly. It's good to have you company. Tune in tomorrow. Welcome back, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan coming to you from the Vatican Gardens in Rome. Now, it all started with St. Peter. I hope you can see St. Peter's Basilica right behind me here as we're behind the Basilica in the Vatican Gardens. Actually, check that. It all started with Jesus. Everything in the church began with Jesus, but as you remember, prior to Jesus returning to his Father in heaven at the Ascension, he sent the apostles out to the whole world to preach his gospel. It makes eminent sense that St. Peter, who was the prince of the apostles, the head of the apostles, would come where? To the Caput Mundi, to the head of the world, to Rome. And he came here, scholars think probably in the late 50s, and he was here a decade before he was crucified upside down on a hill across the Tiber called the Vatican Hill. His body was reverently taken to a cemetery on the slopes of the Vatican Hill, where secretly Christians would venerate that body until Constantine came. Constantine put up the first basilica over the burial place of St. Peter. That one was destroyed, and another one went up in the Middle Ages. And the third one, the one that inspires such awe now, St. Peter's Basilica, came later in the Renaissance. And it's that basilica that we look at now, which is actually the third church on the spot. Are you following me? St. Peter's Basilica over the burial place of St. Peter. Hey again, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here. Welcome back. I'm doing a walking tour of the Vatican Gardens, and I sure appreciate you joining me on this magnificent day here in the Eternal City, the city of Peter and Paul, Rome. As you can see, I haven't been doing much walking because we're still here by the statue of St. Peter's with St. Peter's Basilica in the background. How did these become gardens? At the beginning they weren't, of course. Again, it was a cemetery on the slope of a hill called the Vatican. But in the 11th century, the popes who weren't living here yet began to develop these magnificent gardens, okay, 58 acres. The gardens take up about half of that acreage. The Vatican Gardens were developed to an even more magnificent condition by our buddy Pope Sixtus. And then when the popes moved here in 1870, that's when the Vatican City became the actual residence of the Bishop of Rome. That's when the Vaticans really became his gardens, where he could walk, where he could pray, meditate. The gardens became even more expansive expanded with the following popes, and it was Pope St. Paul VI in 1967 that opened the Vatican Gardens up for guided public tours, and that's why we're here today. Just a little perspective, St. Peter's Basilica behind me, and the Sistine Chapel over here to the left. That's famous, of course. We're looking at the Sistine Chapel from the back. Most people look at it from the front, especially when they're watching for the white smoke. Tune in tomorrow. I hope you're enjoying this tour of the Vatican Gardens. Boy, talk about a walk in the park. Here I am, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, taking a little stroll in the Vatican Gardens in Rome. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. For the next couple episodes, we're just going to be at different locations throughout the Vatican Gardens. You got it? So stick with me. We're actually at the top of the gardens, which is a great vantage point. Shouldn't surprise you to know that at the top, the best vantage point of all, they would build a guard tower. And this is the Torre di San Giovanni, the Tower of St. John, named after both John the Baptist. You have to keep in mind that Rome was constantly under siege. And at the top of the Vatican Gardens, they built this tower for security. Now it's more used for hospitality. Different guests would stay there. Sometimes the popes would have their families there. There's a number of apartments in there. The 13th century is actually when the tower was put up. But now it's just a beautiful historic structure used for hospitality at the very top of the Vatican Gardens. Glad you're here. Stick around. We're going to continue our stroll through the Vatican Gardens. We're back. Hope you are. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here, continuing my tour of the Vatican Gardens here in Rome, in Vatican City. Thanks for joining me. I've often spoken about Vatican City State, which you know since 1929 has been considered an independent political entity, only 111 acres, but it is actually walled in. You can see the section of the wall here. So the entirety of Vatican City State is walled in, and actually the walls go back to the 9th century. Pope Leo IV built these walls to enclose what was then only the gardens and the first church to St. Peter over his burial spot. But keep in mind, it's an independent entity. You can't just stroll in when you want. I'm grateful that the Vatican gave us permission to be here on tours, but it kind of gives you a sense of kind of the independence, the autonomy, and the beautiful serenity that you would get in the gardens, which the popes have always enjoyed for prayer and meditation. You wouldn't be surprised in Vatican City State, you'd have many religious symbols, okay? And especially different images of our Blessed Mother. This is Our Lady of Divine Love, Divino Amore, which is a special devotion of the people of Rome. See you in a minute. Glad you're back, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here in the Vatican Gardens in Rome, on the Vatican Hill behind St. Peter's Basilica. You wouldn't be surprised to know that in the 58 acres that we call the Vatican Gardens, there would be many sacred spots where the popes could stop to pray. This one is to Our Lady of Lourdes. You know the story of Lourdes, that little village in southwestern France in the Pyrenees, where the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to Saint Bernadette Soubirous in 1858. The people of France gave this shrine an exact replica of the grotto of Massabielle to Pope Leo XIII. In fact, the altar there was the first altar used in the grotto of Lourdes. So this would be a special spot of devotion and prayer and meditation as the popes would walk through these magnificent Vatican Gardens. By the way, up until recently, when his health became fragile, the retired Bishop of Rome, Pope Benedict XVI, would take an afternoon walk here, praying his rosary, and he would stop here at the Lourdes Grotto to walk back to his home where he's now living. So thanks for keeping up with us. I'm going to continue my tour of the Vatican Gardens. Talk to you later. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan on our continuing walk through the Vatican Gardens here in Rome behind St. Peter's Basilica. I'm stopping at different locations where there might be an image or a statue, and behind me would be the statue of Our Lady of Fatima, given by the people of Portugal, marked May 13th, 1981, which was the day John Paul II was shot 3 times, remember, by that would-be assassin. He, by the way, it was the feast of Our Lady of Fatima, to whom he had a fervent devotion. And he credited his recovery to her intercession with Jesus, to the intercession of Our Lady of Fatima. So that's why her statue is here. You know the story that she appeared 5 times in Fatima, a little village in Portugal. She appeared in 1917 as the world was in crisis, in the midst of the First World War. And she's always our mother, especially in times of crisis. And Fatima particularly teaches us that. people are always trying to give things to the Vatican Garden, and there's only a limited amount of space, and they like to keep it kind of natural and wide open. But I'm glad Our Lady of Fatima made it. Well, everybody, we continue our walk through the Vatican Gardens here in Rome behind St. Peter's Basilica, those 58 acres that have been used for walking and meditation, especially by the popes. And we find ourselves now at the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Boy, she's so dear to us, especially for the people of Mexico. This was a particular favorite of Pope St. John Paul II, since he cultivated a very tender devotion to Mary, the Mother of Jesus, under her title of Guadalupe. And if you see it real close, you'll see that it's the bishop in Guadalupe who was kneeling in veneration to the tilma, the cloak of St. Juan Diego, with the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is still venerated at the great basilica in Guadalupe. You know what's interesting? The Vatican Gardens themselves display the universality of the church, don't they? I mean, we saw Lourdes of France, we saw Fatima from Portugal, we see Guadalupe from Mexico. So even though we're smack dab in the middle of Vatican City State, we're also under the shadow of the successor of Peter, which means this is the home of the Church Universal. And the Vatican Gardens themselves exemplify that Catholicity, that universality of the church. Glad you're with us. We got a couple more stops. I hope you brought lunch. Hi, everybody. You've been good. You've been patient in joining me for this walk through the Vatican Gardens here in the Eternal City of Rome and these 58 acres behind St. Peter's Basilica. I'm glad you were with me. You know, the Vatican Gardens, they were founded for a place of meditation, prayer, a chance to praise God for the beauty of nature. Truth, goodness, and beauty are three of the attributes of God, and we bask in His creation that reflects that truth, goodness, and beauty. And here in the Vatican Gardens, beauty is abundant. It's interesting, the historians say that the Romans especially appreciated water. Secondly, the beauty of nature. Look at the pines of Rome. And also the beauty of the blue sky and the sun. Truth, goodness, and beauty. And the Vatican Gardens reflect that. It's almost an icon of praise to God's magnificence. The popes have enjoyed it. I enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed it on this walk. We got a few more to go. Don't go away. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Cardinal Dolan again here in the Vatican Gardens in Vatican City State behind St. Peter's Basilica. And I've been walking to different spots in the Vatican Gardens. I hope you can appreciate these beautiful arches here. And that's what the gardens are for walking. Have you ever noticed how often walking appears in the Bible? Remember in the book of Genesis that God is walking in the coolness of the evening with Adam and Eve. Remember the people of Israel walking through the Red Sea, walking through the desert. Remember Jesus walking with his apostles on the road to Emmaus, the night of his resurrection. Walking, traveling, journeying is always very important in the Bible, as it is for us in our own spiritual life. We are on a walk, we're on a journey, we're on a pilgrimage with Jesus in the company of the church towards life everlasting. And in a way, that's what these Vatican Gardens remind us of, simply being with Jesus in and through his church, walking with him towards eternal life. Hi, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan again. Appreciate your perseverance. You've stuck with me in my walking tour of the Vatican Gardens here behind St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City State here in Rome on a beautiful spring day. Thanks for being with us. We're stopping here in front of what's called the Casino. Don't get the wrong idea, okay? Casino just means the little house. The Casino of Pius IV, built obviously by Pius back in the 1560s. And it was intended to be a little getaway for him. And since it's become a meeting place for different assemblies and seminars sponsored by the Holy See, and it's also the headquarters of the Pontifical Academy for the Sciences. This reminds us of that beautiful balance between faith and reason that's always at the core of the church. We appreciate things that are rational and cerebral. We exult in the gift God gave us of thinking, but that's always guided by the light of faith and reason. So the Holy See, the Vatican, is very interested in science, in education, in art, in research. Just another stop here in the Vatican Gardens, and I'm glad you're tagging along. Let's go.